Sriracha. What a great name for a sauce. Sriracha.
That was I don't remember what year, but it was Bon Appetit's #1 condiment.
Bon appetit.
Per
Sriracha.
I don't know, maybe they pulled like 100 chefs or something like that, or restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it was interesting to see that was the #1 condiment one year because so many people were cooking with it in all kinds of different ways.
I heard it's good on eggs.
Well, I mean, it really just depends on how much you like sriracha. I mean, because I've seen people put it on just about anything, and I know I went through a little sriracha phase where I was quite addicted to it, and it went on. It started replacing all hot sauces for me for a long time, and then I was putting it on, like you said, eggs. It was going on breakfast foods, lunch, dinner. It didn't take much to.
Sriracha.
You know what I used to love to do?
Say sriracha.
No, I'd take 1 part sriracha, 1 part ketchup, mix them together, and then I used to put that on my meatloaf. That was my
sriracha meatloaf.
That was my meatloaf condiment. So William Tyrrell, how were we saying that back then? Do you know? William Tyrrell? Let's go with that.
Tyrrell.
So he is the little missing boy in Australia. He disappeared without a trace in 2014. Anybody that's been listening to the show for a long time will know he's the cute little boy that was in the Spider-Man outfit there, like Spider-Man pajamas. And sadly, that picture was literally taken minutes before he disappeared. He's out playing on the patio or back deck area at his grandmother's home. Now, it is his foster grandmother's house.
Yeah, this is the one in New South Wales.
So the family, the foster parents, husband and wife, they went there to visit the wife's mother because she is getting up there in years, and she wanted to sell her place. Now, she had a fantastic home, beautiful home in a highly desired area.
Uh-huh.
And I guess either both of the foster parents or at least one of them was quite involved in real estate for their career. And so the idea is, let's go out. This is a good excuse to visit grandma, let the kids play out in her big yard and have a good time at her house, visit with grandmom, and also let's give her some education on what to expect when selling her house, where she should go after that. It's given her some, real estate knowledge on that end. Unfortunately, the boy, who was I guess he was 3 at the time.
Yeah, he was 3 years old.
Disappears, and we covered it in 2 episodes, and there's people now calling William Tyrrell's case like
September 12th. So
the Madeleine McCann case of Australia. And you said, he disappeared on September 12th, 2014. So we're actually coming up on the 5-year anniversary, sad anniversary. But there is some action in the investigation, which I've been following in the news best I can. And it's interesting because I feel like there's little bits of nuggets of knowledge that are coming out, but there's also some things in there that I feel like I have to read between the lines a little bit and kind of come up with my own conclusion. So some of what I have in my notes here, just a little buyer beware, so we all know some of these things in my notes are of my own conclusion, my own speculation here. But when we reported on this, there was a task force that was put together to review this case, to really not just review the case, but to lead the charge and lead the investigation all the way and see it through. Because this was one of those weird cases where you have a small child who disappears, and then it very quickly becomes a very big, large investigation. And part of that is because of the area where he went missing. It's very hard to search. There's a lot of land to cover there. And then on top of that, we have a few different suspicions going on. We have the foster parents who came under suspicion. We have the birth parents who came under suspicion. And then we also have some type of kidnapping or maybe even possibly a pedophile ring. There were some strange vehicles that were seen in the neighborhood that day before the boy went missing, and this was reported by a few different people. What has taken place in the last 6 months or so of this investigation, really, they've been following a lot of things for years and really been working this case pretty hard for many years. The problem is the case seems to have gone cold. And now that it has gone cold, we have the task force that is saying, all right, we are going to transfer this case to another agency, basically. I'm going to give you the kind of the nuts and bolts of this thing rather than the whole rundown. So what they're doing now is like a coroner's inquest. So the task force, while they will provide answers and provide backing and help to the coroner's inquest, it's now this different investigation that has basically taken over. And from the way that I understand this whole thing to be working, it seems to be similar in a sense to not 100% like a grand jury here, but somewhere along the lines of that. What I mean by that is what they have the ability to do in these procedures is to force someone to come forward and do an interview and be interviewed and subjected to a certain line of questioning. And then all that questioning goes on the record. So it's, if you change your story later, we will know. And we're going to follow up on your statements that go on the record, you know, and you can see how that could carry out. What's been interesting is I think this started in March of just this year. And then they took a break for a while, and then they recommenced in August, just last month. So what it seems to me like what has been going on with this case so far is they've really interviewed really well both the birth parents and the foster parents. And they're also somewhat releasing details that I don't know that we had access to before. And it's just small little nuggets of stuff, but they're interesting ones. You know, so they interviewed the grandmother who was hosting them at the time of his disappearance.
Yeah.
And she's now 85. And look, when this case really first took off, they were really focusing on the idea that the boy may have got lost, because there was certainly room and there was forest and there's woods and there's all kinds of things. The boy could have simply got lost. That, to me, at the time, seemed like maybe one of the bigger suspicions in the case. It sounds like after years of investigation, and now that we have this different type of inquest going on, it sounds to me like the investigation angle now is that the boy was taken, that they think that he was abducted. And they've interviewed the foster parents and the birth parents quite extensively, I believe, and it seems like those two sets of couples are no longer so much so in, you know, under suspicion at this point. What has come out is there's been detailed information about the foster father's movements that day that is really minute by minute stuff. And on top of that, we have neighbors who have been interviewed by this inquest that were saying, the foster parents, once they knew the boy was missing, they all appeared to be doing exactly what you would think they should be doing.
Right.
What you would anticipate a frightened parent, a scared parent doing in a situation where their child is missing. And they even had, you know, neighbors coming forward and coming out saying the foster father seemed to be in hysterics of I mean, just like looking everywhere you could possibly think of for this little boy. And then on top of that, you have, you know, they released a statement by the grandmother from her interviews where they, you know, she's asked, could anybody have taken the boy for any reason at all? And she said something like she was suspicious of one of her neighbors. And now this is not an individual that has come under any suspicion at all, but she was suspicious of this neighbor at the time because they kept an odd schedule and they lived alone for a very long period of time. And likely somebody that's may just be a misunderstood individual. But I'm really curious to see where this is going to lead. I've been following this because I think they're making some headway in a weird way. And now, mind you, this could be all stuff that they already knew behind the scenes with the first set of investigators, with the first task force.
Right.
And now it's just coming to light. But for me, anyway, as somebody that looked at the case for weeks, and for you, Captain, what it's done for me is that I'm a little more, it's added clarity to a situation where before I thought that there were several different possible outcomes, to where now I feel like the inquest, in my mind's eye, are kind of sharing the same viewpoint, where it feels more now like that is the proper route of investigation, that the boy may have been abducted. And what does that mean? You know what I mean? We know that we talked about suspicious cars and weird cars in the area at the time. Or was it something just as simple as somebody that's very local that was involved? But I think it's a little bit telling in the sense that I think if there were strong suspicions by law enforcement of the foster parents or of the birth parents, because remember, one of the thoughts was the birth parents didn't want to give up their boy. He was basically plucked away from them, and after reviewing their situation, rightfully so. But he's plucked away from them, and the idea was, at first, did the birth parents, did they go and take their boy back?
Right.
Did they go and take their boy back? Now, remember, their home was searched very quickly after the boy disappeared, and they were also hours away, drive time anyway. So, again, though, for me, where the suspicion of could the boy have been lost, was he abducted, was this something that was done by either set of parents, or was the grandmother covering up for the foster mom, anything like that? I mean, I still have little suspicions, but now that I see the direction that this thing is taken, I almost feel like that seems to be, there must be something there. Not so much so that they have proof that the boy was abducted. I think what they probably very likely have is zero proof that the other outcomes took place.
Well, and now you're also having the initial investigator. He's coming out saying that he has his thoughts, and as they're going through this process, he's going to try to respect this process so they can get more information. But it looks like, he really views his inability to solve this case as a personal failure. He retired from the police force last month after he was charged with illegally recording 4 conversations during the investigation. So,
but he's not stating that he has, like, he's not stating like, we can't solve this because so and so is stopping us. So and so is really putting a halt to our investigation.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out the actual link to this. It was written by Ben Graham, and you can find him at Ben Graham.
Well, in the Australian Associated Press, which obviously goes out to multiple publications and newspapers, online articles, and so on and so forth. They're a good one to Google when you want to look for these updates, because you're going to kind of find everything.
Yeah. Basically, he's saying that he has an idea of who he thinks is responsible.
But again, that's the same idea of abduction.
Right. Yes. So, like you said, I think the important thing about the progress that we're making is you're taking off certain rabbit holes that you don't need to jump down anymore, because they're saying we're funneling this. So we've kind of talked about that before. A case becomes, you have all this speculation, and you have this evidence, and you start funneling it, and then eventually the picture will become more clear, and as we were able to put blinders on and focus more in depth on what really happened.
Well, and that's why I say I feel this move is a big positive for this case. Look, it's not going to be the outcome that we want. This is not the outcome that anybody wants, but at least maybe it can get solved. Maybe we get the answers of what actually happened, where the boy is, and who is responsible for what took place. So, and you and I have said this on mic, off mic 100 times. If you can't look at a picture and go, this is what happened now, how do we make an arrest? How do we get this straightened out? Then you go, okay, you have 10 different possibilities. In this case, probably more like 5 or 6 that were really more prominent than the others. And you say, okay, if we can't draw a circle around what happened, maybe we can put X's over top of what didn't happen. And through the process of elimination, lead us to what we should be really pursuing.